The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. We're fortunate to have two members of the General Assembly with us, also heads of two powerful chairs, Senator Bill Carrico, Transportation Committee Chair. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Woody. It's always good to be here and to do some things that the public back home can see and hear what we're doing while we're in Richmond.
Great. Delegate Terry Kilgore, good to see you. Good to see you, Chairman of Commerce and Labor.
Hey, great to be with you, Woody. I'm glad that y'all offer this opportunity for us to share with our constituents.
Great. I mentioned to you that we had one of your constituents here recently, Donna Henry from UVA-Wise. Talk to us about that school. She was very impressive.
Donna's doing a great job as our chancellor. She has been on the ground and she's really committed to economic development. And, you know, our goal, and Senator Carrico and all the Southwest Virginia legislators goes to grow that school. We have a lot of opportunity there. It's about at 2,100 students. We think we can grow that to 4,000 to 5,000 students over the next 10 years. And with that, bring some doctoral programs and some master's degrees. And I think that would really help that area, and because you know, the more students you bring into an area, the more they spend money, and the college can become that economic driver that we need, and also recruit and retain some businesses to follow that, whether those be technology businesses or other type businesses that would go along, research that would go along with the college.
So what other economic drivers are necessary in your district in order to foster and further the new Virginia economy?
Well, the economy is the main thing that we as legislators look at when we come here to Richmond and throughout the year while we're working with businesses that want to remain in the area and some that want to come. Some of the ideas that we've had over the past year is to look to hire a marketer just for the Southwest region by utilizing Tobacco Commission money and VCTA money, and trying to beef up the prospects that may want to come to Southwest Virginia. With the declining coal industry, we've got to do some things, you know, to try to replace that. Other parts is the budget amendments that we've done addressing the Coalfield Expressway. That's a lifeline, the lifeblood of that region, to open it up for businesses to want to come there. The money that we spend through Tobacco Commission monies for the expansion of broadband to the region for the help in rural areas to get that last mile and broadband out to those areas that we need to go to.
And I take it that regional marketing opportunity is something that's sorely needed now, given the JLARC report regarding the Virginia Economic Development Partnership.
Well, we need it really bad in Southwest Virginia because we've not been getting the leads. And you know, I'm carrying one of the bills on the VEDP to try to restructure VEDP, but we don't have time to wait for restructuring in Southwest Virginia. We've got to move forward with a marketing plan today, and our goal is just simply, you know, hire some marketers, go to those markets like in Europe or East Asia, and try to contact those companies that would like to expand in the United States. And if they'd like to expand in the United States, we want them in Southwest Virginia. And it costs some money, but I think it's going to be well worth it once we start funding this process.
Well, how is tourism in your area going? Also agribusiness and forestry.
Tourism is on its way up. I mean, we've got a lot going on. We've got the Crooked Road Initiative. We have a Spearhead Trails Initiative down there where we have all these. If you go to St. Paul, Virginia, for example, on a weekend, on a Saturday morning, you'll see all kinds of four-wheelers there with all these folks. They can ride 100 miles back on trails, and they come from all over, out of state. You know, last time I was there, I saw them from Indiana, Michigan, and you know, those folks come spend their money and then leave, and we don't have to educate their children. So that's a great move. But also farming. You know, you know, farming, agriculture is still the top economic driver in Virginia. And it's still important in Southwest Virginia. We've got a lot of dairy farmers, a lot of beef farmers, and also we have, you know, still folks raising some crops. Tobacco used to be the main crop, but
Right.
Of course that's not the case anymore. But we still do have a lot of folks raising other crops, vegetables and things of that nature.
And forestry is a big industry in the Commonwealth, is it not?
It's huge. In my region, in the 40th district, you have a lot of the sawmills that still reach out to utilize best management practices in those regions for harvesting trees that are mature ages, and keeps you know, that under control through a best management process. And you know, going back to the agricultural piece, Virginia Growers, that is in Hillsville now, the nation's top pumpkin growers in that region, and forestry with the Christmas trees. A lot of people discount those, but we're probably the nation's top Fraser fir grower now in a lot of parts of that region. So agriculture is always going to be a part of Southwest Virginia, and we're always trying to protect that and our farmers that want to continue. And we do have in Carroll County a specialized class for that, so that, you know, people who want to go into that industry will. It's not a lot of people at a young age wanting to go into farming, so it's becoming a very technical process. So there's a STEM program at Hillsville High School right now dealing solely with agriculture, and you know, we're trying to show students that it is a affordable program to go into, and it's something that we need to keep going.
So science, technology, engineering, and math, that obviously applies to farming.
Absolutely.
Obviously it does, Woody, and we have to, you know, you got to be able to do all the above in order to farm, in order to do any type job today in today's market. And that's one thing we've been working on quite a bit, is workforce development, workforce training. You know, when a company comes to Southwest Virginia, we have to show them that we have the workforce, and that workforce is trained and ready to go. And that's another area we're working on, getting those type machinery that our actual businesses are using, and training our students on those machines so they can have a certificate and they're ready to go. And we really have to address those concerns, and I think we're doing that right now.
And of course, Senator, you mentioned the Tobacco Commission, and it continues to play a significant and vital role in your district and the region.
Absolutely, and Delegate Kilgore, of course, chairs that commission, and I chair the economic development for Southwest Virginia. So we utilize and leverage as much of that tobacco money for the job creations for that region as we can, because it is a integral part of what happens in Southwest Virginia to provide jobs for people in that region that have lost their jobs through tobacco. And I think we've done a great job in investments so far with the Tobacco Commission, and I think we'll continue to do so. Even in the tourism side, we've appropriated money towards the Spearhead Trails, those things that are growing our economy, the music museums that we have now, and you know, where the start of country music began, and you see festivals surrounding all of that brings people by the thousands into those regions, that they spend their money in Southwest Virginia, and then they go home and their kids are not there for us to have to pay to educate, as Delegate Kilgore said, and we can benefit from that money.
And Delegate Kilgore, it took a lot of foresight to set aside funding that could be used in the future, did it not?
Yes, we're the only state that did that, actually, Woody. And you know, that's you know, I was pleased to be serving at the time, and pleased to work on the negotiations then with Governor Gilmore, and making sure that this money was set aside and exempt from future legislators or future governors. appropriating that money. A lot of states used that money because it was during the time of some recession, some downturns in the economy to balance their budgets. And luckily, Virginia didn't do that. And I don't know where Southside or Southwest Virginia would be today had it not been for the Tobacco Commission.
Right.
And of course, some of that money was used actually to help farmers who had lost a lot of money.
Sure. They had their allotments that they were able to get, and that helped them, counteract what the losses were for the tobacco that they grew. But I think the investments that we're making today is for the future of those tobacco farmers' children and grandchildren as they move forward in Southwest Virginia.
Let's talk a little bit about transportation, the
Okay.
committee that you chair, especially in terms of what's happening with the Commonwealth Transportation Board, the way the criteria is being used to determine where funding goes statewide.
Right. Under House Bill 2, once all that changed a few years ago, the scoring mechanisms were put in place to try to take the politics out of how these roads are built and how much money goes to regions. I think that a lot of it is dependent upon how the Commonwealth Transportation Board scores these projects and how we get those numbers. And one of the bills that we have that I'm carrying is trying to get those scores to us prior to the Commonwealth Transportation Board voting on them. That way we have the ability to review that to see if there's any other criterias that they haven't scored, so that we can take it back to the Commonwealth Transportation Board because of the local engineers afraid to be too political with it.
Yes.
So this will help us in the future fight for our districts without being politically driven. Just last year, Delegate Kilgore and I saw a project that was in Abingdon that there was an economic development piece that wasn't scored, and we went back to see the commissioner and we explained to him that this wasn't placed in it. They were able to rescore it, and the project was funded. And those are the things that you as a legislator need to see prior to them releasing the actual projects, because you know things that are occurring that the engineer don't want to get involved in, and we're able to do some of those things. But it seems to be working fairly well. One of the things that I would like to see that actually would benefit us a little bit more heavier and Hampton is the bridges. In Southwest Virginia, you don't get many places that you don't have to build a bridge either connecting two mountains or going across a river or tunneling through a mountain. Same for Hampton with body of waters. They have to build bridges to locations or tunnel under to go through them. And I think the expenses of that is so great that we need to have that part of that.
And so, Delegate Kilgore, as you travel around your district to see your constituents, you have a need to use all of those bridges, do you know?
Yeah, we have to. And we're just thankful that Senator Carrico now is the chair of transportation in the Senate, because he can bring the rural perspective to his colleagues and to our colleagues also. But Senator Carrico's right that in our part of Virginia, roads would be economic development. They're economic developer driving, and that means getting from one place to another. Usually, if you're going 50 miles, where I live, it's 50 minutes. In Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, it's about connecting people and maybe using some mass transit and some things like that. So there are different needs over the Commonwealth, and we're hoping that House Bill 2 continues to take those different needs, take those and move forward with them.
Talk to us about hydroelectric generation.
We're very excited about the possibility of building using hydroelectric, or a pump storage station, as it's called. I have a bill that's already passed the House and now over to the Senate, which would allow one of our incumbent electric utilities to build a plant in Southwest Virginia. We need the tax base, we need the jobs, and it would be a big economic driver for us. And the power companies need the power, because we're continuing to, with all the gadgets we have now, Woody, we continue to need power. And I think that it can be a big win for us. We can use some of our, maybe some of our old mine water that we have. We have billions of gallons of mine water that are below surface that we could pump back up for a hydroelectric, and also, and we could run the whole system, run the plant on solar energy or wind energy, which is renewable, and that just shows that we're all the above. Southwest Virginia wants to be all the above, whether it's coal, gas, or renewables. We want to make sure that we're a part of that energy capital of the East Coast, and which Virginia could be and can be if we move forward.
Tell us a little bit more in detail about the Coalfield Expressway. You talked about that before, and some of the improvements needed on the state roads that are within your district.
The Appalachia region realized that there needed to be a connectivity between the coal states. So you had West Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia, and an easy route to the ports down in Louisiana or wherever you want to move the coal from. There was no real way to move that coal other than Route 23, and then you go into Dickenson County. That's one of the only counties in Virginia that doesn't have a 4-lane highway. And so what the Appalachian Region Commission looked at is a Coalfield Expressway, and that went under construction with federal dollars. And what we're wanting to do is make sure that when those federal dollars are appropriated, that none of it get caught up in House Bill 2 for competition. So our bills we're trying to move that forward to where we set up an authority, much like West Virginia did, and that any federal appropriations that come down will go to the House Bill 2 to connect West Virginia, Kentucky, and Virginia into Tennessee up with the Coalfield Expressways that are currently underway, and then still let us compete for House Bill 2 money, because that is a lifeline for the coal region. Anything that you want to build infrastructure-wise has to have a good road, and we can lay into place that fiber, the water, the sewer, as these projects are being built. And the best part about Virginia and the Coalfield Expressway is we already have a public partnership with the coal industry. As they mine, they can lay the road beds, and the cost is driven down. So we're looking forward to seeing what this new administration in Washington does on infrastructure, because we feel like we're ready to go, and we want to be in position that if they appropriate infrastructure dollars, that we're ready to move on it.
Now, what about the new administration and the lifting of some of the regulations that I know you've been concerned about for years?
It's a wait and see situation right now, but so far it looks promising. We have talked to a lot of coal operators, and they're making plans to open some new mines or reopen some of their mines that they had shut down. The market's a little bit better right now, but the regulations, the cost of those regulations, they were killing some of these jobs in Southwest Virginia because of the definition of a stream, or because of you can't move. You had to put this here or that there, and just had a lot of those type regulations, and different regulatory agencies coming in for 2 or 3 looks at things. So it made it cost prohibitive. But I think with the new administration, working with the new administration, and letting them know it's about jobs and it's about real people, real lives in Southwest Virginia and coal country in the Central Appalachian area in particular, I think we're going to get some help.
Great. Now, what about there's this, I think it's 20 years old, but I-73. Something else, I tell you who talks about it all the time, of course, is Bill Stanley, right, right. What's happening with I-73 from your perspective?
Well, I-73 is a part of that connector between South Carolina and North Carolina. And it is also a infrastructure piece that once the manufacturing industry went away, that you want to connect all these states up to have a main thoroughfare through there. Senator Stanley is very passionate about I-73, and I think that one, it doesn't have federal appropriations to it as much as the Coalfield expressway would, but it's something that I think that we need to really start working towards a funding source that may go towards being able to connect, because North Carolina, South Carolina, the states around us, Ohio and places like that, are starting to connect their interstate 73 projects together, and we don't want Virginia to be left out of that mix. There's a lot of routes that they looked at prior to choosing a route, and I think that we can utilize some of our 4-lane highways that are already in place to connect all these together, that would keep the cost down. But it is an important road. I mean, I-73 is just as vital as to the south side and portions of Southwest as it is as Coalfield Expressway is.
And Delegate Kilgore, you've had to deal with over the last few years a lot of new technologies. You had Uber, Lyft. You've dealt with it, obviously. We've got drones on the horizon. We've got Airbnb.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that really knife-edge balancing act you have to deal with in terms of incumbents and these new entrants.
Oh, well, I mean, it's something that, you know, they deal a lot with in transportation as it relates to Uber, and I've got some bills in on that, and how you deal with Uber versus the incumbent taxi drivers. And you know, people's freedoms to ride in an Uber or go to Airbnb and rent a room and things of that nature. So, you know, those are a lot of issues that, because of technology, that's coming up now. And I think a lot of legislators across the nation are dealing, you know, Virginia's not alone in that. And, you know, as it relates to drones, you know, I'm so excited about what's going on out in Wise, that we're one of the areas that the FAA has given us the ability to operate drones and test at the airport at Lonesome Pine, and we're out there in the rural area. You know, it's not Dulles or National. You know,
Right.
You're never going to be able to do that at those states. So we're seeing a lot of folks looking to Southwest to research and to do those test flights. So we're excited about that. You know, the first drone package of medical, you know, to deliver medical drugs, it was out at Wise when the governor was out there. So that was a big day for us.
Commercial drone use, issues around local ordinances that may prohibit their use, and also privacy issues.
Yeah, we've been dealing with a lot of the autonomous vehicles, drones. This year, the package delivery Starship legislation that basically brings your groceries. It looks like a little cooler on wheels that can travel up to 2 miles with someone sitting with a remote to deliver things. So all this is a new advanced technology that's coming into the areas and Virginia is a leader. Uber, every state that you see with Uber regulations basically took Virginia's model and went after it, and now we're dealing with carrier deliveries with Uber, and so, you know, we're always testing the limits in Virginia to see how far we can go, and I think these autonomous unmanned aircrafts and machines that utilize our sidewalks to deliver goods to other people is just the future of what we're going to be seeing. And how we approach it is how states around us approach it. And, you know, drones is the one thing that you always have to think about is the interference that they have with your aircrafts. And Transportation Committee is always dealing with the ports and the airports, and, you know, how far do you go and how far can you let these operations occur until you start to interfere with FAA regulations and making it an endangerment to people who are traveling by air. So, you know, I think we have took the right steps forward to do things, and I think that, you know, Wise has been adamantly in the driver's seat when it comes to the drone usage and how it can be successful. As you heard from Delegate Kilgore, the first area to use a unmanned aircraft to deliver medical supplies to the RAM project there in Wise, Virginia. So we're going to move forward. We're not going to move backwards. And I think technology-wise, Virginia can be the Silicon Valley on the east as far as that goes.
Great, and of course, local government has a dog in this fight, so to
Oh.
speak, because as you know, to some extent, they can regulate drones. On the other hand, Airbnb, they want the money, potential tax
Yeah.
money from that.
Yeah, and they do, and it's a fine line you have to walk with local government, and trying to make sure that we're not passing legislation here that ultimately hurts them, and then we're going to have to pay in some other
Right.
way, whether it's schools or things of that nature. So we have to be careful there. But most of us want to make sure that we do not, stamp out flourishing markets, and these flourishing markets can help areas of the state like ours, where that you have a rural area and the possibility of delivering medicine to an emergency situation, or or developing these drones for wartime situations where you're delivering medicine across enemy line, there's a lot of uses for this type of technology, and I think we're just at the tip of the spear. I mean, who would have thought years ago that I'd have a computer type phone in my pocket that has more more capacity than those old computers that we used to work on back in the 90s.
Absolutely. We got about a minute and a half left. I know you're working on the budget. We've got crossover coming.
Yeah.
How are things going, and are state employees going to get a raise?
Well, we've made a conscientious effort to do that. We're going to do a 3% increase, and I think the House and the Senate, we've been working together from day one to make sure that we're not very far apart when we come out with these budgets on Sunday. State police has been a top priority that we've faced because of the growing number of troopers that we're losing every day, and the percentage of states around us that have increased their salaries for state troopers and state employees. I've been a conscientious focus of making sure that 3% is in there for them to get paid with no triggers attached to it. And the other part for us is the Southwest Virginia school declining population, to try to do some hold harmless dollars that will help our school regions be able to continue to operate.
Lots of teachers visiting, I take it.
Oh, lots of teachers, and hopefully that we can send some of our lottery monies back to our localities where they don't have to match it, and with no strings attached, that they can use for our teachers and to give our teachers a raise.
Great. Thank you for both being here. Senator Bill Carrico, Transportation Committee Head, and Delegate Terry Kilgore, Commerce and Labor Head.
Thank you.
Thank you, Woody.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast. Until next time, I am Woody Evans.